But this is the main thing here for this part of the topic, is looking at the economic aims of the government. So you have 4 there, and on the next page we have about 8. Yeah, okay. So quickly flick through these and just kind of talk our way through them. So the first one we have there is the economic aim of the government is to achieve full employment. Now the thing to take note of there, full employment isn't 0% unemployment, it is around 4% unemployment. And the reason it's not 0% is because there'll always be people who are between jobs or are waiting to start jobs, who are looking for jobs. It'll never be 0%. The reason that's an economic aim of the government, well, if people have jobs, that boosts consumer spending. Consumer spending, like I just said a second ago, the big driver of aggregate demand or the big driver of economic growth, right? And it will also mean the government increase direct and indirect tax. So if people have jobs, they have an income. If they have an income, they spend it. If they spend it, they contribute to indirect taxation. So indirect tax is a tax on spending. So actually you might just want to scribble those two. So it's good to just be thinking about all economics all the time, right? So indirect tax. Tax on goods and services. Direct tax then, it's tax on income and wealth. Tax on income and wealth. So if the government, if you're in a situation of full employment, well, you got more people spending, so more people paying VAT, and you've also, because there's more people spending, means that people's incomes are increasing, and it means that people are paying more income tax. So it's a better situation for the government from a taxation point of view. Some ways the government might actually achieve that. So if they want to achieve full employment, there is a bit down the bottom of the page we'll look at in a sec. They invest in job training programs, create public sector jobs, they could hire people themselves, or they can encourage business growth and enterprise. That would be kind of an indirect way of achieving their aim. The second one then is control government finances. So really this is related to the budget. So the explanation, they have to maintain a balanced budget, control spending and manage national debt levels. So post-recession, we entered into the Growth and Stability Pact with other countries from the EU, which said that you can only have a debt to GDP ratio of 60%, right? So it meant that you actually couldn't run at massive debts. Then COVID happened and we put that in the bin, and it's kind of coming back now. But it is very much one of the economic aims of the government to control their budget and to control their finances. One of the things we said from strand one of our learnings from economic history was that government should adopt prudent fiscal policies. The reason for that aim, well, if the government borrows loads of money, it has to be future generations that have to pay that off. It means that there might be high debt servicing costs. They might borrow the money at high interest rates. And it might mean that we've got less money to invest in infrastructure and actually developing the economy. So there are some of the reasons. So how might the government achieve this aim? Well, it's straightforward enough. Just be smart in your budget. So reduce unnecessary spending and increase taxation where appropriate. Aim 3 then, protect the environment. So an economic aim, just actually on the last 2 there. So if I asked you how these 2 would conflict with each other, I think you could come up with an answer. So how does the aim of achieving full employment and controlling government finances, how are those 2 things at odds with each other? So if we said here with achieving full employment, the government will have to invest. So you need to see that they need to invest in job training or create public sector jobs. That involves them spending money. If they spend money, it makes this a little bit harder, right? I mean, it's harder to achieve a balanced budget if you're spending money. So it means that they've got to get money to spend from somewhere. So it either involves increasing borrowing or taxation or stopping spending on something else, right? So those 2 are definitely at odds with each other, because if you're spending money to achieve full employment, that makes it harder to achieve this. So protecting the environment, well, explanation, implement policies to preserve natural resources, reduce pollution and promote sustainability. Reason for the aim, you want to focus on this, right? It helps to meet EU targets. And the reason I'm pointing that out, and I'd say put a little asterisk beside that, is because exam questions to do with sustainability, there's loads of them that ask you, what are the benefits of some sort of sustainable initiative? Really common exam question in recent papers. And it might be, what are the benefits of the deposit return scheme? What are the benefits of increasing recycling? What are the benefits of less fast fashion? Whatever it is, right? A lot of those sustainable sustainability related questions where they look for a benefit. One of the main answers, what are the benefits of reducing carbon emissions? One of the main benefits to that stuff is that it helps us to meet EU targets. If we miss EU targets, we're liable for fines. So you'll see that on loads of the marking schemes for that style of question. So it's just something to look out for. So how can the government achieve that? Enforce environmental regulations, provide subsidies or grants for green energy. So that's something the government do give grants for being green. So like the government will give grants for electric cars. The government have given a vehicle registration tax break for electric cars. The government might give grants for solar panels for your house, that type of thing. And again, that involves spending money. So you can see how those two might be at odds with each other. Controlling government finances and protecting the environment. Well, if the government are giving grants, that's money that they're spending and makes it harder to control their finances. Protect the environment and achieve full employment. Those two things could be at odds with one another because of the whole idea of opportunity cost. If the government invests in job training programs, it might mean that they don't have money, they don't have grants to give for electric cars, that type of thing. Number 4 there, promote balanced regional development. This is one that is creeping up a lot in exam questions. So what that's about, and it was part of the economics research project for 2023, of course. So this is about developing all regions equally to ensure economic and social opportunities are available across the entire country. So it's making sure that economic growth is spread out evenly across all the country. So the reason for that aim, well, it's about preventing disparities, overcrowding, taking some of the pressure off housing in cities. And how can the government achieve it? Well, invest in infrastructure in undeveloped areas and provide incentives for business to locate to those areas. That are things that like the government actively do that. So for example, through the IDA, so the IDA's job, the Industrial Development Authority, their job is all about trying to encourage foreign direct investment in Ireland. One of the things that they do is they try to incentivise multinationals to locate outside of Dublin. It's a big part of their strategy. So you just see here down the box in the bottom left, this is one of those examples of policies that government could implement to achieve a particular aim that I was talking about earlier. So it's just a little bit of an extension of how could the government achieve policy of full employment, and we have multiple ways they could do it. So they could promote exports. So again, one of our key learnings from economic history is that for Ireland, it's really important that, you know, that we can export abroad, that we don't close ourselves off, that we, you know, that we're an open economy, and that's important for us, right? So we can promote exports. So how could we do that? Well, Enterprise Ireland, I mentioned the IDA a second ago. Enterprise Ireland are another state body, and their main gig is to try and get Irish companies who want to export abroad. So it's trying to help those Irish companies who want to grow their export markets. So the government could give them money and they could give grants to those businesses who are looking to grow their export markets. So that's one of the ways we could do that. And if you think about it, that's important to Ireland because we're only 5 million people, but if you export to the EU, you're exporting to a couple of 100 million people. So if you want to make Irish companies really big, they have to export abroad. So that's an obvious way of how we create jobs. If we get more companies in Ireland to get big and to grow internationally, that increases demand for our products, and that means we need more workers to make that stuff. So promote exports should be an obvious enough one. Focus on competitiveness. So in economic sense, right, you see this. If you want to be more competitive, it's all about your costs. So reducing competitiveness is all about reducing costs. So if we have a low cost base for businesses, that means we're competitive. And the offshot of that, right, is, and this is, you know, another example of how this topic links in with what we see in macro. We're really linking into international trade here. If business in Ireland have low costs, they can keep their prices low. And what that means is that our goods are then more competitive in international markets. If you're an Irish business and you export to America, and let's say the cost of making your good in Ireland is relatively low, it means you can keep your prices relatively low. It means that when your goods hit American shelves, American customers are like, oh, I might go with that Irish option, it's well priced. But if you're an Irish company and the cost of making your product are really high because, you know, wages or utilities or raw materials in Ireland are really expensive, that means that you have to have a high price to cover your costs and make a profit. And that means American customers will look at the Irish good and be like, no, that's too expensive, I'll go with some other alternative. So the more we can, you know, reduce costs and make us more competitive, that might help us achieve full employment. Increase public sector employment. The government could just step in and create jobs themselves, and they can provide training or upskilling opportunities. So that was what we looked at above. Next couple of aims then. Control inflation. is an economic aim of the government. So when we talk about controlling inflation, it's about keeping the rate of price increase is stable. So the government actually don't want no inflation, or the ECB don't want no inflation. We do want inflation to be about 2% over the medium term, right? So it's about keeping price rises stable and predictable. The reason for that aim is it protects consumers' purchasing power and ensures economic stability. So what's happened really over the last 2 years, we're in a situation where prices have increased at a greater rate than our wages have increased. And that's a problem. Like if your wage increases by 5% and prices increase by 5%, nobody really cares. You're no better off or no worse off. But if prices rise by 5% and your wage only increases by 1%, well, then your purchasing power has fallen. So again, we're getting into macro here, we're getting into monetary policy and the price level. So how can the government achieve this aim of controlling inflation? It's difficult for the Irish government because the main tool you'd use there is monetary policy, and we only have control over fiscal policy. So the government will have to step in and maybe reduce indirect taxes, and that should bring prices down, but there's very little the Irish government can actually do. So you'll see there it says the ECB use monetary policy. It's really up to them. But look, we'll go into that in more detail in strand 4. You might see how, let's say the government want to control inflation and they want to achieve full employment. So if the government decide, what we're going to do to achieve full employment is we're going to encourage business growth and enterprise, and we're going to give loads of grants to businesses who want to start. And let's say that's successful. Businesses grow, incomes grow, there's loads of profits been made, might mean that there's an increase in spending in the economy. And an increase in spending can lead to an increase in prices if supply can't keep up with this increase in demand. That's what demand pull inflation is all about. So it's just another way that economic aims could be in conflict with each other, and something to have in the back of your head. Always ask yourself, how can these aims conflict with each other? Achieve economic growth is the next one. That's an obvious enough one. So explain that. Well, economic growth at a very basic level just means we made more stuff this year than we did last year, or it means that the value of the stuff that we made this year is greater than the value of the stuff we made last year. So how we achieve that? Increase the overall production and consumption of goods and services in the economy. That's what it's all about. The reason for that aim, well, it increases standards of living, it increases employment opportunity, means the government get more taxation, and they can fund more public services. There's kind of you get into kind of a cycle where economic growth feeds more economic growth, right? How the government might achieve that, they can encourage innovation, invest in education and infrastructure. So you can see if the government invests in encourage innovation, so again, they might give grants to businesses. It might mean that, again, that could create more jobs. It could lead to an increase in incomes if it's successful. It could lead to a rise in spending. So if the government achieve economic growth, that might make it harder to control inflation. So those two things could be at odds with each other as well. They want to achieve stability in the banking sector. So really that's through regulation. We want to make sure that depositors' money is safe in the bank. So when you put your money in the bank aren't just keeping it in a vault somewhere. They're going to take your money, they're going to lend it to someone. And they're going to lend it to someone at a higher interest rate than they're giving you for saving with them. But again, more on that later on. And implement a just social policy. So really that's about having policies that ensure a fair distribution of wealth and opportunities and resources. So remember, coming back to where we started this, one of the big benefits of a mixed economy is that the government can step in and look after those who are unemployed or those who are retired. Reason for that aim, well, it reduces inequality. That's the whole thing. How can the government achieve it? You absolutely should be prepared for this exam question. So again, a little asterisk beside that, you absolutely need to know how the government reduce inequality, because it's an exam question that you can see in so many different forms. You can see an exam question that just suggests 2 ways the government can reduce income inequality in a country. You can see an exam question that says, how can the government improve their HDI score? And the HDI measures a country's performance in 3 dimensions: healthcare, education, and GNI per capita. So the answer to question 1 of how can the government reduce inequality is, well, yes, they can have progressive taxation, they can increase social welfare. But some of the other things they can do are invest in education and invest in healthcare, make them more accessible. How do they improve their HDI? Well, invest in education, invest in healthcare. you could see an exam question that says, how can the government narrow the gap between their HDI and their IHDI? And again, this is stuff we'll do in strand 5. And really that's a question about how can the government reduce inequality. You could see an exam question that says, how can the government improve their Gini coefficient scores? So this is going back to strand 1. And again, that's just a question about how can the government reduce inequality. So some of the ways the government can reduce inequality: provide social welfare programs, progressive taxation. So progressive tax that takes proportionally more from high income earners from low income earners. And down that box, you'll see some of those suggestions of government policies to reduce inequality. I would put a big asterisk beside that. In fact, you can move that over. That is the key thing. So increasing the minimum wage, that's one of the big things that we're doing to sort of reduce inequality. We're committed to removing the gap between the minimum wage and the living wage, which is a big aspect, I believe, of the 2025 project that you guys are doing. Implement progressive tax policies. We mentioned that one. Having social welfare, and that last thing about giving universal access. That's what I'm talking about. Investing in healthcare, investing in education, and making them more accessible. But again, you can see how, let's say the government want to implement a just social policy and they increase social welfare payments. That might make it harder for them to control inflation because it might lead to demand pull inflation. It might make it harder for them to control government finances up here. But you should always be asking yourselves with these, how do they conflict with each other?